Good evening, everyone. Tonight's opening narrative is probably not what you might have expected. Before we begin tonight's hearing, I want to leave you with this thought. Our town depends upon volunteers. Every board and committee is powered not by experts from somewhere else, but by neighbors like you that step forward. I know some people hesitate, maybe the issues feel too complicated or too controversial, but that's exactly why your voice is needed. Hard decisions become better decisions when more perspectives are at the table. Our board, you, we don't have all the answers. Just a willingness to listen, to learn, and to care about our community. Volunteering isn't always easy, but it is rewarding. It connects you, it teaches you, and it leaves a legacy of service. Many of our town's boards and committees have vacancies, including your Board of Appeals. So, if you ever thought someone should do something about this, that someone can be you. I invite you to step up, sign up, and help shape the future of our town. Our Board of Appeals needs more members. I would be pleased to sit down with you to discuss the commitment in serving with the ZBA. Just reach out to Rachel or Lisa in the building department, and request that I contact you. And don't be concerned about the volume of code to learn, or even if you have no related experience. You will start as an alternate member, but will be actively involved and able to comfortably learn. To prepare for each case heard at our monthly standard meetings, you only need to learn one code at a time. So I'm looking forward to meeting all interested residents, so thank you. And I also want to take this time to personally thank all the members of my board for their time and hard work, especially in preparing for these 40B hearings. Thank you. Now, I'm going to read the case.
Case number 2025-21, Wingman Acres LLC and Mid-Cape Church Homes, Inc., doing business as Pine Oaks Village Homes. The case has been continued from the October 14 hearing.
Okay. Well, our first item tonight, and actually before we begin, I'd like to introduce all the board members.
Kenneth Dixon, Chris Murphy,
Alexander Donahue,
Brian Sullivan, Chair.
And David Nunley.
John August.
Marilyn Ross.
Amy Castleton.
And there's going to be an error in the agenda, which last night, the last meeting, I did review that tonight we'll be spending time going over conditions. For some reason, when it was finally written up and printed out, that item was dropped off the list. So we're not going to adjourn the meeting, we're going to do conditions tonight. So I just want you to know that actually after item 4, which I don't believe we're going to need, my motion is that we adjust the agenda to indicate the discussion with the board and the applicant conditions. Can I have a second on that motion, please?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the adjustment is carried. So, we're first going to hear a presentation by TRC Consulting. And speaking is Renee Gagnon, excuse me. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sounds good. Okay, just to introduce myself, my name is Randy Gagnon. I'm with TRC. I'm a civil and environmental engineer, a registered professional engineer in Rockingham, Massachusetts.
Randy, just so you know, the people on the line,
Yeah.
they need to speak really close to the microphone.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
No problem. So like I said, my name is Randy Gagnon with TRC. I'm a civil and environmental engineer with about 20 years of experience in both environmental projects and land development. Lots of stormwater design and review, as well as things like renewable energy projects and that sort of thing. So, like I said, I'm a registered professional engineer in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. I don't know if I said that already on the microphone, but so last week, 2 weeks ago, my colleagues from TRC gave you their presentation on the environmental review, as well as the, I believe it was the hydrogeology of the project. So in conjunction with that, we were also asked to kind of address a few stormwater topics related to construction, stormwater management, and dewatering, and things of that nature. So I'd like to sort of start with the construction, stormwater, and dewatering topic. So your construction, stormwater management practices, along with your dewatering practices, sort of fall under the umbrella of your stormwater pollution prevention plan, and those are in conjunction with your erosion and sedimentation controls. So the stormwater pollution prevention plan is sort of your all-encompassing document for the construction period to prevent pollution from leaving the site. This document is usually created in conjunction with getting the construction general permit through the EPA for any project that disturbs over an acre and discharges stormwater to the water of the U.S. In this case, we would be looking at the Erie River is the water of the U.S. that our site could discharge stormwater to. So, like I said, the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, also known as the SWIP, I'll say SWIP, it's easier to say. So your SWIP, again, is like your all-encompassing document that contains all the information that's related to construction period, stormwater flows, and any other source that could provide pollution off the site during construction. So that's going to include all your erosion controls, like your silt socks, your stone construction entrances, your temporary sediment basins, your temporary swales, your dewatering practice, because those waters can also contain pollutants, as well as, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so basically all your erosion controls, all your temporary stormwater management controls during construction. For this project, we reviewed the plans and it looked like they're proposing to use filter sock for sort of the perimeter controls, a stone construction entrance to kind of handle the construction equipment going in and out of the site so that they don't track sediment onto the street, that sort of thing, as well as temporary sediment traps and temporary diversion swales to sort of, during construction, those things will capture any flows that want to leave the site and sort of hold them and make sure that they're not discharging sediment-laden stormwaters off the site. Now, all of those measures are perfectly fine and standard, if you will. Our recommendation would be that they provide a little bit more information, like generally a sediment trap would need to be sized based on the amount of area flowing to it. Now, things during construction can change, and maybe one basin they build may no longer be useful. They want to build another one somewhere else, and that's fine. So, I mean, usually with the level of plan that when you're getting your permit, you don't usually provide that detailed information because you're not quite sure how the site's going to be at any given point during construction. That stuff can change. So, but we would recommend that when they do provide their SWIP, that I guess the initial idea for the sediment traps and for the swales, they provide some sizing calculations to make sure that those are going to be adequately sized for the amount of area flowing to them. There was also a couple of things with there was a couple of like small things like construction details were missing, well, at least I didn't see them, for like the filter sock and the construction entrance, that sort of thing. Again, all this information will be in the SWIP because the final plans are also part of the SWIP. So that whole package is going to be again, that all-encompassing Bible, if you will, for preventing pollution from exiting the site. So, and I mean, I can go in depth as to what else would be in the SWIP, but if you want me to keep it short, I'll answer any questions if you have them. So that's generally our recommendation. Again, provide that additional information on the final plans and in the SWIP, and we should be good to go. The other topic we were asked to look at was the sizing of the proposed stormwater piping system. We reviewed the 25-year sizing calculations for pipes, and we also reviewed the 50-year sizing sizing calculations. And I think we noted that to make the system adequate to handle the 50-year storm required the upsizing of approximately 25% of the total number of pipes in the system. So relatively small upgrade to make the system adequate for the 50-year storm. And as you know, with climate change and that sort of thing, we're getting more and more larger storm events more frequently. It just makes for a better design for sure. So that would be our recommendation to implement the 50-year design. So we reviewed those calculations, but we also noted that there were no plans yet that showed those changes made. So we would recommend that the final plan set capture those changes from the 50-year calculations. And I think the last item that we were looking at was regarding nitrogen loading for the stormwater. We understand that the Herring River has a TMDL for nitrogen, so we would definitely recommend that a nutrient management plan be developed with the town, so based on their recommendations, whatever that might be, essentially to either limit or eliminate any things like fertilizers that have nitrogen in them to kind of keep the nitrogen loading low. And that nutrient management plan would be implemented with the stormwater O&M plan, which is like the long-term, like once the site is built, the stormwater system has an operation and maintenance plan. You would make this nutrient management plan part of that document. And that's the document, whoever's in charge of the project, like way in the future for maintenance and stuff with the stormwater system, that nutrient management plan will be in there. So they know not only do they have to maintain the stormwater system, but they also have to maintain this nutrient management plan. So that would be our recommendation on that. And like I said, that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions regarding any of the stuff I just talked about. So.
I've got a question. I'm not sure it's to the consultant or it might also be to the applicant. I know it's a phased project. I think we talked previously, it's pretty much a net cut fill zero project, if I recall. But with the phasing, is it likely that you're going to have to stockpile some of the excavated material until a later date? And if yes, how is that covered in the erosion control plans?
Normally that would be covered under the SWIP. So stockpiles, how they're managed, how they're protected. Again, if the SWIP is going to spell out, okay, if you have a stockpile that's not going to be touched for the next X number of days, this is what you need to do to make sure that's stabilized. Sometimes it's temporary seeding, sometimes it's erosion control blankets, sometimes they put a silt fence around the outer perimeter of it. It could be any number of those, a combination of those things.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is it could be years, right?
And so in that case, you would want a more permanent solution like seeding or something like that to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. But all of the intended measures would be spelled out in the SWIP, and the instructions for the person on site who's in control of the project. So a copy of that SWIP needs to be on site at all times during construction. So that way, whoever is in charge at any given moment, if something does happen or a situation arises, they turn to that book and it tells them what they need to do.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Joe Henderson, Horsley Witten Group. I think that's correct. We would be developing detailed drawings for each phase, so construction level drawings that would incorporate, those measures as he had stated. So the plans right now are just not at a construction level. Though all these things can be built into the conditions, if you like, and then in our detailed construction drawings. And that would be broken into, again, phases, so that, we'd have each phase would have its own set.
And we would recommend that before construction starts, that the SWIP be submitted to the town for review to make sure that they, in most towns that I work with, it's like the conservation agent would be the one that would kind of review that stuff, just to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, for the record, Peter Freeman, attorney, representing the applicant. We discussed that last night. We don't mind the recommendations, but I believe that your attorney, Ms. Questle, agreed with me when I said, yes, all those things are part of a SWIP. We can provide a copy when we file it, but that's not typically done until very closer to the start of construction, and it is not something that the town reviews. And I said specifically, I do not want a condition that says we submit it to the town to review. We'll file a copy with the town when we'll file with EPA. Thanks.
Once it is filed, and obviously it's DEP is responsible, who checks it? Who comes down to the site to see how things are going, and then, we're maintaining the integrity of the SWIFT document?
So, as I understand it, EPA sort of leaves it up to the operator of the project. The operator is the one who's in charge of the day-to-day operations. Now, I know that a lot of towns, especially like when you're working within resource areas and stuff like that, people like the conservation agent can show up on the site at any time and inspect things and look at erosion controls and that sort of thing. Now, again, EPA, they usually leave it up to the operator to make sure that what they're doing is correct. But if someone complains to them, then they get engaged and they'll come to the site. They'll be looking for things like inspection reports that need to be documented on a regular basis.
So our conservation agent can go to the site, and if the department has a problem, then they report it to the EPA.
Well, I mean,
Just,
I don't know if they could, but generally they would address it on site with whoever's there. So,
Okay.
like, let's just say a silt fence is broken. Like there's a section of silt fence that's damaged, and they walk around and see that they would say, hey, you need to fix that. And then if they don't fix it, then you can start reporting it for that sort of thing. Usually it's not, unless it's like something crazy, like, I don't even know, like maybe something a spill or something like that. Again, EPA doesn't really get involved unless somebody engages them to get involved,
all right, thank you.
in my experience.
Any further questions? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. You have the time to stay here in case something comes up regarding this order.
If you need me to stay, I can hang for a little while.
Okay. All right. So, next on the agenda is item 4 was continued review of the waiver request. I do believe we covered everything last night. Was there anything that needed to be brought up from last night that needs further covering on waivers at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll proceed to the next item, which is the main thing tonight is going over conditions. All right, documentation that was provided to you from the work that Christine and Chris and Ken had done, as well as suggestions from the other departments in town. Today, though, we all received, and late this afternoon, and my first time looking at it is this evening, really, documentation from the applicant in response to a lot of these conditions, requests. And you in the audience, if you, the initial document of the conditions, which are draft and proposed for discussion, if you don't have it, it's on the table up front. I've got a couple of copies right here for you to grab, but it is there in the front when you checked in as far as that condition report. So feel free, if you don't have it, to go get it. Okay? But I think basically, and what is important information here, my recommendation is I perhaps begin, we go through the responses for the applicant and review those for discussions first. Attorney?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's fine. Just a very brief explanation to the board. As I was going through what we received from Mr. Sullivan, which was his draft, I realized that a lot of it was conceptual things that needed to be addressed. So you will see a lot of strikeouts, deletions. I wasn't intending to say that we simply don't agree. In fact, what I submitted with 2 other documents were a lot of conditions, one from our traffic expert, Mr. Dirk, and one from Rich and Joe from Horsley Witten, that really flesh out a lot of the things that were addressed with some questions and comments as either placeholders or just things that Mr. Sullivan and staff wanted to address. So I just wanted to reassure you that, a lot of the things that were struck by my draft or commentary, we have our own proposed conditions that are a little more in the form of conditions. So as I say, I kind of realized halfway through that they weren't quote-unquote literal draft conditions, a lot of them more conceptual. So we have some things that I think should be struck, but there's really much more agreement than you might think from seeing my document that has a lot of redlining. I just wanted to reassure you on that.
I wasn't offended.
Thank you.
Good. No, thank you. Appreciate it. It's all right. And remind us all to have our cell phone silence. I did mine finally. All right, I'm going to begin with the October 15th memorandum, which is on potential conditions of approval related to civil environmental topics. First of all, the first item is landscaping and lighting. Basically, we do have today, we received, gentlemen, a revised photometric plan, which is in front of everybody. I think at this point, we're not in a position to look at it and condition it. Perhaps later on, we'll have that opportunity. So we do have that plan, which we requested last night. Okay? Any discussion on it that we need to? I don't believe so. Okay. All right. Then the next item is subdivision of land and site plans special permit regulations. So here's a comment. VHB provided a comment that the final plans and associated documentation include clear and enforceable operations and maintenance plan for both the roadway and the stormwater infrastructure, and recommended that the final comprehensive permit conditions clearly require adherence to the submitted operations and maintenance plan. VHB also provided a comment that privately owned features such as stormwater BMPs, internal roadways, sidewalks, lighting, and shared infrastructure be maintained in accordance with regulatory requirements. The applicant responded and acknowledges that such conditions would be acceptable. Stormwater management and wetland compliance. Peer review consultants VHB and TRC commented that the proposed project activities will be within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act due to proposed work within state-regulated ordinary vegetated wetlands and riverfront area, and that the federal NPDES construction site and general permit will be applicable for disturbances over 1 acre that discharge to the waters of the United States, referring to the Herring River. Both consultants' recommendations that the project will need to comply with applicable state and federal stormwater permitting requirements, and VHB recommended that this be included as a condition of approval to ensure clarity and enforceability. The applicant, in his response, acknowledges that such a condition would be acceptable. General stormwater comments. VHB and TRC commented on the Cape Cod Commission's input on the project, noting that the project is located within the Herring River Marine Water Recharge Area, a nitrogen-sensitive watershed subject to a TMDL, and that the project will need to comply with Cape Cod Commission's regional water resource protection goals for nitrogen loading from wastewater and stormwater sources. VHB recommended that the board include as a condition of the approval that the project shall meet applicable TMDL requirements for the Herring River watershed consistent with the Cape Cod Commission guidance. The applicant, in response, acknowledged that such a condition would be acceptable. General engineering and plan comments. VHB provided commentary acknowledging that the project will require obtaining a Mass DEP groundwater discharge permit for the private wastewater treatment system for the work beyond Phase 1. VHB recommended that the issuance of the Mass DEP groundwater discharge permit be included as a conditional approval to ensure the wastewater system is designed and operated in compliance with state requirements. The applicant in response acknowledged that such a condition would be acceptable. Phase 1 wastewater flow will not trigger the requirement to obtain a GWDP, but Mass DEP and Harwich Board of Health will need to issue an approval letter acknowledging the wastewater and nitrogen loading approach of the project. So in Phase 1, our town Board of Health will be in charge of making sure things are properly done. VHB commented, this is under the possible one, VHB commented that the phasing plan submitted should be augmented to include additional information on implementation of erosion and sediment controls for each phase, sequence utility installations and emergency vehicle access to the wastewater treatment facility. The applicant responded with a supplemental overall phasing plan and more detailed implementation documentation for Phase 1, including utility installations to the WWTF and the emergency access to and from WWTF. The applicant requested that more detailed construction level documents for Phase 2 to 5 be a condition of the comprehensive permit. VHB has initially commented that the sidewalk shown on the plans that at the end of Queen Anne Road does not show a connection to any future sidewalk on that might be constructed on the road. Since no alignment plan exists for the potential connection, VHB and the applicant agreed that it would make sense to defer final coordination between the town and the applicant until the Phase 1 construction document stage, and should therefore be a condition of the comprehensive permit. Is this as dry as it sounds, folks?
Can't find you on the paper, so I don't know.
Yeah, the papers, the app doesn't cover what you're covering.
I realize that. These are submittals from the applicant, as I mentioned, and then we'll be going over the submittal that we had in front of you. Okay, so that's going to be the second part of this. So what's in front of you, there are some items in there, but we'll be going over that as soon as I'm done with these submittals today. Okay? But thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate it. You are? Okay, you kind of just voicing that when you, so it's following me on the lobby? Okay.
There's 3 documents put up in the lobby, and this is one of them.
Okay.
The one that says draft, it's not what you're covering. It says October 15th, 2025. It says, it actually says October 15th, 20252. So sometime in the day future, but this is everything that was out there. I just wanted to date it off by the 7th on the table.
Well, hopefully it's there, folks. I apologize. Ken, can you go out and just take a look, see what's out there, what's not up there? Okay. But I'm reading it. So the key thing is, we're hearing it, I'm reading it, and on all these copies, so you know, I believe are already loaded up on our website, so it'll be there for you to review as well. Okay? VHB commented that the temporary construction access road shown on the plans did not include a restoration and conversion plan at the end of the project. And the applicant responded that the construction access would be constructed in phase 2 and removed on the project completion. Updated landscape plans show that the area to be revegetated at the conclusion of phase 5. A condition may not be needed, but if the board vets additional assurances are warranted, a condition is provided. Okay. So they're fine to add that condition. Actually, I'll read the language. The applicant proposes to use temporary construction access off of Manassas Road to be constructed during phase 2 and removed following completion of the project. The road shall be removed and the land restored and revegetated at the time to the satisfaction of town of Harwich Department of Public Works and with documentation acceptable provided to the ZBA.
Mr. Chairman, there were not enough copies there. They're out.
Okay, I apologize, folks. Two elevated boardwalks are proposed on the comprehensive permit plan, and a conceptual level detail of the boardwalk is provided. That's in those site plans. VHB requested that the board consider including a condition of approval that the final construction documents be reviewed and approved by the appropriate town authorities.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do have 2 extra copies up here. Would someone like one of those 2 copies that we're reading?
These are gold. We'll go cheap. And if you possibly, if you have them, you can share them with someone near you, that'd be appreciated. We can all kind of cuddle up together. Anyways. Right now, for those who have it, I'm on item 6. Deliveries and moving vans requiring more space than 40-foot standard delivery spaces provided and/or more time will be required to reserve parallel spaces for these activities. I'm not quite sure, let me read that again. But the applicant intends to incorporate the reservation system for these activities into the overall neighborhood management activities. VHB recommended that the board include a condition for this topic. I need to stop us here. How do we handle a reservation system for people coming on site? And who is going to control that and take care of the hassles on
Mr. Chair, if I can elaborate. Rich Claytor for the record. Principal engineer with Horsley Witten Group. The VHB had commented on, during the peer review comments, that moving trucks and residents moving in and out
I see.
needed space. And they also were concerned about delivery for stuff bigger than the 40-foot spaces provided. So in our response to peer review comments, we said that Hal Keen, who is a management company responsible for all management on Pine Oaks Village, would have a reservation system. So if you're moving, you put the cones out and that's established.
Now I understand. So the on-site manager is going to take care
Yes.
of moving in
Yep.
and coordinate that.
And they've asked for that to be a condition of the comprehensive permit.
My son lives in Charlestown. Whenever he's moved, he's had to apply to the town to get a permit and put cones out in front of the area near his condo. So it's the same type of system. And I should have asked the board, I've read a page and a half here. Anytime, please stop me if there's a comment that you folks like to ask a question regarding it. Was there anything so far that I reviewed that we needed to go through here and discuss with the applicant? Okay, so please, I'll make those, I wasn't stopping to think about that, but I will now going forward.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Go back to, I guess it's wastewater treatment plant. There's a comment made yesterday. I figured since it's on my mind now, I want to make sure I didn't miss this. The first phase would have a Title V septic system. Would that have an enhanced nitrogen removal also included in it?
Yes, we're just saying Title V because it's under the 10,000 gallons per day for the groundwater discharge permit, but it would be the same level of treatment as a treatment plant.
So the amount of nitrogen being removed in phase 1 is the same as the amount of nitrogen being removed
Yeah,
in phase 2 through 5?
Treating to the same level of
Right.
nitrogen reduction, yes. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
That's a great question. And it kind of reminds me of one thought I had, and I believe it's covered in our documents going forward here. But I know your goal is, you've talked about being nitrogen neutral. Is that going to be accomplished without you buying nitrogen credits?
Yes, I think we right now, we don't have that fully figured out yet. I mean, we have to go through all the detailed analysis with the DEP. The groundwater discharge permit includes a hydrogeologic study, which gets into real detail on the nitrogen loading, and then we'll have to develop a plan for that. So I think what we wanted to do is, once we get through this process, we will dig into real detail on the wastewater design. So that's what. So I can say it may include that. Yes, it's possible for sure that it could include that. But what level of, what kind of combination of things, we can't say for sure yet because we haven't fully designed the wastewater plan.
Thank you. And maybe the consultant TRC can jump in, but my understanding is that since we're dealing with the area watershed area, that nitrogen credits can be purchased by some other corporation, residential community, contractor, construction, whatever, that it also operates on or near the watershed. And firms can earn nitrogen credits by how they handle their nitrogen in their site. And these credits, so that the whole goal is to keep, as much as best possible, in this case, the Herring River watershed area, nitrogen neutral. They would buy credits. My understanding is it has to be from someone associated with that watershed area. Am I correct?
So unfortunately, wastewater is not my area of expertise.
Okay, but anyways, we'll go with that for now. But But am I correct on that?
Yes, so we will not be issued a groundwater discharge permit if we don't demonstrate that we have a no net nitrogen level.
Okay. All right, I think we're going back here to item 6. Oh, we already did item 6. Okay. On 7. On Dasher, okay. VHB commented that the maintenance and operation of the project's privately owned infrastructure, including but not limited to the roads, stormwater, and drainage infrastructure, sidewalks, lighting, sanitary sewer, WWTF, and common areas should be subject of a management plan approved by the ZBA prior to the issuance of building permits for this project. Okay, another future condition that's been approved. Environmental peer review letter. Peer review consultant TRC commented on the secondary fuel storage and containment of the emergency generator proposed for the community center. The applicant is suggested the possible language that the project proposes an emergency generator fueled by the carbon-based fuels for the proposed community center building. The applicant shall coordinate with the Harwich Fire Department to meet the Board of Fire Prevention Regulations requirements. TRC commented that any groundwater pumped for dewatering activities should be discharged back into the groundwater within the project site. Could you explain to me what dewatering activities are?
Yeah, I can start with that, and then Ray can follow up. But if we excavate down far enough and hit the water table, you often have to pump nearby to draw the water down so that you can work in the dry. And what you pump out of the ground, the comment was to put it back in the ground nearby, on site. We don't actually think you're going to hit groundwater in this project, but you might. It's pretty deep in a lot of places. But so if you do hit it, that was the nature of the comment, and they suggested, I think the only way to enforce this would be to put it in a condition that basically says if you pump it out of the ground, Ray mentioned treatment methods. A lot of this would be included in the stormwater pollution prevention plan. You treat it, and then you put it back into the ground.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. Dewatering practices in...
Could you grab that mic? You turn it on at some point.
Everything you said is correct.
Okay.
Dewatering is handled under the so those means and methods and everything.
Any questions from the board? Okay. TRC commented on a few other environmental items related to the possibility of spills and the release of oil and hazardous materials, cleanup and containment supplies, and road salting post-construction. They suggested that the town should ensure that appropriate safeguards are in place and open lines of communication are established prior to construction. And to show the agreement, the applicant has indicated the project will most likely have to obtain construction site general permits for disturbance of over an acre discharge into the water of the United States. The applicant should prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which actually we already discussed what we're going to do. Okay. All right. That was the memo from the 15th regarding potential conditions approved related to civil and environmental topics. Anybody have any questions or comments on that before we go further? Folks, bear with me as I do this. This is also my first time reading this. Again, we just received this prior to the meeting. This next thing is for Pine Oaks Village 4 comprehensive permit transportation conditions. Subject to the approval and advancement with final design and construction of the project, including without limitations, the issuance of building permits for the project, and subject to the town of Harwich obtaining funding for the matters described below, where the town will be seeking approval of either town funding for and/or awarding of grant funds from state or federal entities. The developer shall implement it, design and construct the following measures within the defined cost limitations and subject to receipt of all necessary rights, permits, and approvals. First item is regarding Pleasant Lake Avenue at Queen Anne Road. Design and implement an optimal traffic signaling timing and phasing plan prior to achieving 60% occupancy of the project, and reevaluate the timing upon achieving 80% occupancy in order to determine if additional adjustments are necessary to accommodate the increase in traffic resulting from the project. Any comments from the board? I will state, oh, I'm sorry, Peter.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you. I just wanted to, for everybody's edification, it is the first time you're seeing this physical document, but these are all, in essence, what was submitted by Mr. Dirk, either in August or earlier in September. So,
yes,
in essence, you've seen them. Doesn't mean you shouldn't go through them. I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Well, now it's been refined as to conditions that you are agreeing to or whatever. That's the key thing tonight. Everyone understanding what conditions are being approved, by the applicant, as well as later on we may find conditions that we need to negotiate about. Okay? Now, one comment on this I will make is that I believe in reading other past memos from departments, I think there's a difference of opinion between the police department in Harwich and the highway director regarding when the timing is best to be done. So, when we do conventional language, I would like to have it clear the fact that, and we made comment on this, that we accomplished that based upon the mutual agreement of the Harwich departments, which will be obviously, I think, handled by our town administrator as to when this should be done. Okay? Are you okay with that one? Well, right now, the police department in Lincoln, and the highway department, I believe on the same wavelength, in agreement as to when the lights at Pleasant Street should be retimed. All right, so there's different ideas as to when they should have the applicant's consultant take care of the timing. And I just want to make sure the fact that the timing is not done. We want to consider the fact that when we look at our town authorities and their input as to when the timing should be done. Or do we need to make it specific? I just want to make sure we get that language in there, so our people who run the town have input on the timing. Yes, Pete?
In general, I don't object, but just to clarify, I think what you're talking about is we proposed in this condition first at 60% occupancy and then at 80%.
Right, I understand.
So and I think that's what you're talking about, to check with them if they...
I have one gentleman who wants to wait till phase 5. Okay?
Yeah.
And maybe it does in phase 3, whatever, or 60%, but I just want to make sure the town's in agreement what goes forward.
Sure.
And I'm fine with the fact that it's not done until 60%, because prior to that, it may not be much of an impact.
Yeah, understood. We'll talk to them. Thanks.
Item 2, prepare a road safety audit in coordination with the town, the Cape Cod Commission, and Mass DOT to evaluate potential causes and contributing factors to the motor vehicle crashes that are occurring at the intersections and to identify potential safety enhancements. When would that audit be done?
As you know, it has been started, and although I went through this, I didn't contact Mr. Dirk to find out when it would be completed. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
It's in progress.
So it's going to be done up front?
Yes.
Okay. So, of course, not that it's a part of this discussion, this application, but obviously there's a lot going on in that intersection. And at some point, we're going to need to coordinate with other developments in the area so that everything's properly timed. Item 3, pending the completion of the RSA, design and construct the short-term low-cost improvements that are identified as an outcome of the RSA subject to the receipt of all necessary rights, permits, approvals, and within the amount not to exceed $20,000. To the extent that there are other development projects in the area that also impact this intersection, a cost-share agreement will be arranged with the identified party or parties. So, may I understand this? The applicant's willing to provide up to $20,000 in funds regarding the completion of the RSA, the design and construct. We may have another organization involved that's also interested in this intersection. So are you saying the cost savings of sharing the $20,000, or are you going to look at the fact that they, given the size of their development, say they're going to throw in $10,000 towards the effort? So would there be a combined total opportunity between more than one developer of $30,000?
Our intent is that the maximum that this applicant pays is $20,000. What we're also saying is if there are others that are reasonably deemed to be contributing to the issue, that they should also pay a fair share. So what this is intended is their contribution would reduce or could reduce the $20,000 that we agreed to pay.
All right, so your $20,000 is not in addition to what another developer may be willing to contribute?
Correct.
Okay. Any thoughts on that, folks? Okay. Prepare an intersection, item 4, prepare an intersection improvement study to identify the appropriate capacity enhancements for the intersection to include the preparation of a conceptual improvement plan and accompanying cost estimate. The IIS will be prepared and submitted to the town prior to the issuance of a building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project, and will include a preliminary cost estimate and fair share cost calculations to establish the proportionate assignment of the improvement cost to the project. Just need to read it again to understand it. Any questions, comments? No. Okay. Well, that's the completion of the discussion regarding conditions or et cetera regarding Pleasant Lake Avenue or Queen Anne Road. Now we have items on Queen Anne Road itself. Prior to the commencement of construction activities associated with the construction of the first residential building associated with the project, install 2 permanent radar speed feedback signs along Queen Anne Road at locations to be defined in consultation with the police department within an amount not to exceed $10,000. Item 2, undertake a comprehensive review of signs and pavement markings between
Pleasant Lake Avenue and Main Street, and replace or supplement existing regulatory and warning signs. The review will be undertaken and a report prepared and submitted to the town prior to issuance of building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as part of this project. Just a comment to the board and perhaps the audience. Regarding these regulatory and warning signs, this does not, in my understanding, include speed signs. Those white speed signs, which in that road are some 40 and also 30 miles per hour, they are state regulated, even though it's a town road. The state is still responsible, the town can't change those speed signs without state approval. We're referring here to other signs, the yellow signs, whatever they put up, such as, warning signs, that the town would do, but the speed signs are a state responsibility, and we'd have to review that with them. Any questions? Okay. The developer will collaborate or otherwise partner with the town to advance the following capacity and safety improvements within the North Harwich area. So that's completion of Queen Anne Road thoughts. Now we're on to the whole North Harwich area. Prior to the issuance of the building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project, assist the town to prepare a grant application for a Mass Works or Housing Works grant to design and construct the identified improvement strategies as identified in the IIS and contribute a fair share cost to the town for the design and construction of the improvement strategies as identified in the IIS within an amount not to exceed $10,000. The fair share payment will be deposited with the town prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project, and in addition to the $20,000 not to exceed that has been committed to the implementation of the short-term, low-cost improvements that are identified as an outcome of the RSA. Questions? Okay. Queen Anne Road, continue. To the extent so desired by the town and prior to the issuance of a building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as a part of the project, assist the town to prepare a grant application for the installation of sidewalks and bicycle accommodations along Queen Anne Road corridor between Pleasant Lake Avenue and Main Street.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may comment on my team's condition, this one, it occurs to me and perhaps others, with the final decision draft, we will need to put in some time limits because we can't sit waiting forever for the town to say, well, maybe we will, maybe we won't, which it's susceptible of something like that happen. I'm not alleging bad faith, but I think we will need to, and I'll go through this before the next hearing and suggest some suggested time limits within which the town has to fish a cut bait as to what they're doing.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to make a personal observation. I mentioned this at the last meeting we had at the community center. That was 2 meetings ago. This process, this evaluation of the Pine Oak Village 4 application has generated obviously a lot of interest regarding the traffic and safety in the North Harwich area. And we appreciate that. This board appreciates that. There's been a lot of good information and studies related to this project that have been accomplished by not only the applicant, but also by VHB. that is, I think, quality information, which this town needs to review. The town also had hired VHB to do what's called the North Harwich Traffic and Safety Study, which was a very expensive report that was delivered to the selectmen last January regarding the North Harwich study. That incorporated a lot of the issues as far as next steps that have been discussed throughout these hearings. I urge the town and the town's Harwich Traffic and Safety Committee to start an effort of organizing plans, given what we know is happening with Pine Hills Village, should that be approved, of course, as well as what's happening in Marston Properties and other developments in the area. It's time to start planning improvements to the traffic structure, the infrastructure of these roads. These roads have been a lot of discussion, particularly by the North Harwich residents, of the problems that already exist in this transportation network. These problems are prior to anything happening with Pine Hills Village potentially coming on board. So regardless of Pine Hills Village, there are things the town has already needed to do to consider the safety and transportation needs of the area. And I'm urging the town, and particularly as a result of these hearings and the next set of hearings for the Marston Properties, to finally gather its energy, commit the time to all the committees in town, and start doing the planning that's needed. So, I'll get off my soapbox. All right, now what is this? Okay, thank you. Am I on Main Street? Queen Anne Road. Okay, so we're on Queen Anne Road and Main Street. Prior to the issuance of a building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project, assist the town to prepare a grant application for geometric and improvements at the intersection of Queen Anne Road at Main Street. Depot Street, Old Chatham Road, Factory Road. Prior to the issuance of a building permit for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project, assist the town to prepare a grant application for geometric improvements and safety enhancements at the intersections, and contribute a fair share cost to the town for the design, construction of the recommended improvements within an amount not to exceed $10,000. The fair share payment will be deposited with the town prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the first residential building to be constructed as part of the project. Any questions, folks? Check. That was the second report. And again, to everyone here, I'm sorry we didn't have enough copies for everyone on here. Again, they will be on the website and not already there. All right. What time are we doing now? Okay, 7:36. We're doing pretty good. All right. So the next phase here is a review of what I know everyone has, the draft copy of the conditions which town departments, our board, the conservation agent, etc., and planning director put together as a result of these hearings. And I do want to comment the fact that throughout, and maybe some of you have heard some of the conditions that you've discussed at the podium when you spoke, but some of these conditions we've had, particularly on the environmental side, I said, it have to come as a result of comments from residents. So, board members, there are now 2 copies you have, and I want to make sure you have them both in front of you, because I'm going to have trouble with all the cross-outs, fully understanding, the update from the applicant, because and we have the original draft. So you make sure you have both drafts in front of you, so that things aren't confusing. There's also, okay, don't get you. Oh, you can't? Okay. Right.
That's the other copy, just the non-red line?
Yes, okay. I had a little trouble following it when I was first looking at it, so that's what I'm going with. Okay? And in case you still have it, because I can obviously read from it, there was a memo of October 11th from Judy Barrett, our consultant, who's not here this evening, where she made some comments regarding some of our conditions, which I will, at some point here, bring that to light. Okay, before I start on this, are there any recommendations on how to go through this? Amy, just one at a time like we're doing? What do you suggest?
What are you going to do about the ones that the applicant has deleted, he's deleted pages?
Yeah,
How are you going to do that? And again, we did just get this.
So I'm working on that, and see my pants here.
So
I think I'll read what we have. Huh?
We got this at 3:07 today.
Right.
So, what is the best course of action?
I think what I'd like to do, Peter and folks, is review what we said, and then if you could just comment about why it's being deleted. How does that work?
That's fine, and as I said at the outset before we started, a lot of the deletions were because we have proposed conditions that you just went through.
I realize that. So we'll read our
fine.
condition, and then your comment, obviously you commented in writing with this report, so I would like to go through our condition and then make the comments. And it's not going to take all that long, I don't believe it. Let's see what happens. Amy, do you agree?
I honestly, we got this at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, so we're just gonna go for it. Okay.
I'm not sure this is very valuable, but, yeah.
All right.
We don't have to agree with all of the solutions, but.
Oh, of course. Well, that's why we're going to go through it. So I'm going to discuss what
We can't make that decision now.
we're not going to.
Okay.
But what I want to find out now, and then of course during public comment period, make sure that people understand what we first originally requested for a condition. The applicant can comment about why he agrees or feels we need to delete for whatever reason, and that's how we can proceed. No, we're not waiting for this. We have time. No, I don't believe we have time.
Because we can get through a lot of it. If Judy and I have the opportunity to go through all the solutions, we could possibly agree on them.
Are we supposed to hear her?
Right, give this down to you. Give this down to you.
Sure, so my comment is that if at least I had, and I'm sure our MHP consultant Judy Barrett, if we had time to go through this, there's a good chance that we would agree on many of the deletions, and therefore we wouldn't even have to discuss them. That would be our recommendation to the board. But again, we just got this at 3:07 today, and I haven't had a chance to look at it. So.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I understand and agree with what Amy said. We'll certainly work after tonight with her and Judy, and it is true that you just got it. You know, we've all been working on the conditions really just since I think the end of last week, and it's a good way to proceed. Though, you know, as I say, I think that this is a good approach that you're doing. And I think we'll have an even idea as to conceptual agreement after we go through these, and then we'll polish everything up afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you. It's amazing the people agreeing with me. All right.
I don't agree. They agree with each other and not with you.
Not with me? Oh.
To not proceed.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna plow through, guys. Okay. All right. These are comments from the conservation agent. Under Wetlands Protection Act and not Harwich Wetlands Protection Bylaw. As stated in both the LEC Executive Summary dated on May 20th, 2025, and the TRC Environmental Peer Review memo dated September 10th, the applicant should file an ANRAD application with the Harwich Conservation Commission and Mass DEP to conform protectable wetlands classification boundaries. Third-party on-site review of the wetland delineation done by the applicant should be performed to ensure accuracy. Seem to be in agreement. Item 2. Any other comments? Any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I see there are comments that if required by the Conservation Commission.
You actually correct.
This is going to be very difficult for people out here in the audience to follow.
Well, they have the main report.
Well, they have this report, they don't have those comments.
Well, we're going to go over that. Okay, that's what we can do, Ken. We're not going to stop the hearing and reschedule. Okay, so we have to do the best we can to accomplish the goal here, folks. So when you say you acquire the Conservation Commission, you're indicating Harwich's or the state's?
Harwich.
Okay, so they're agreeing the fact that the Conservation Commission of the town can oversee this, which is a good thing. Item 2.
We have that written in Harwich.
Well, it's in our main copy. Yes.
We just specify to answer your question and make it clear.
Right, the draft, our draft is here.
Okay.
It says Harwich.
Okay.
But I'll make the note on their copy as well, as agreed to. Okay. Once the wetland delineations are confirmed, the applicant will file a notice of intent with the Mass DEP and the Harwich Conservation Commission for the work in the buffer zone to wetlands in the riverfront area. Applicant's representative, Horsley Witten Group, has stated that they will be filing with the Conservation Commission for the work in their jurisdiction. I believe what the applicant is saying here on their side is that once a wetland, can you comment as to what you agree or do not agree on that condition?
Yeah, just real quick, and then perhaps Joe or Rich. The main thing is the concept we agree with, but what I struck in particular was the minimum intrusion into the 100-foot buffer zone to the greatest extent feasible. Language like that is difficult to understand and enforce. We're not objecting to the concept, and my engineers can verify that that's their intent. But what I suggested inserting is that it's all subject to the approval of the Conservation Commission. Because again, if we get into a standard that just says to the greatest extent feasible, and we all acknowledge, as you have tonight, that it's the Conservation Commission that's going to be reviewing, I just want to have some more definiteness, that's all.
Excellent. I didn't read that section of it, and I will indicate the fact here. Overall, the applicant and the Conservation Commission will be working together per agreement here on how we handle any intrusion in the 100-foot buffer zone. But as the agent wrote here, minimize intrusion into the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetlands to the greatest extent feasible. The site is very well naturally vegetated and a variety of native plants and a few invasives, except for the area near Wetland C, where there are a variety of invasives. And the applicant has been agreeing to work with the Conservation Department to deal with invasive species. And I believe, I think we discussed it last night, in dealing with some of these invasive species, there was discussion last night about the lack of using, fertilizers as well as, other things, weed control, etc. However, on the invasive species in this buffer zone, there are certain things, certain kills that have to be used in order to kill these invasive plants. It's a goal of the Conservation Commission to remove these invasive plants before they get worse. So under the Conservation's approval, the applicant will be allowed to use the proper chemicals to kill those, or whatever method they're going to use, without being the supervision of the Conservation Commission. Am I correct there, folks? Okay, thank you. Item 4. Require that the applicant's site work includes the removal, of invasive area C, and the replanting with natives to prevent the spread of invasive species and improve wildlife habitat. Removal of these invasive plant species and replanting with native ones will be seen as a potential mitigation. This work should be part of a notice of intent application with the Conservation Commission as it is in or within the 100-foot of wetland. And I think overall there's an agreement there. Okay? You did comment that this work should be performed as part of the construction for Townhouse 3. So wherever the phase is in for Townhouse 3, then we'll be doing it. Okay, moving right along here. Okay, while not mapped as a priority or an estimated habitat by the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program, this property may be suitable for Pacific endangered, threatened, or rare species according to the preliminary response from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The applicant is required to determine if the project may have an impact on those species. They should complete the IPAC determination keys and coordinate with the USFWS, or I think it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, if necessary. Okay. And I'm going to kind of read this section here because actually, let me just take that first part before we get into the rest of it. Any qualifications for you folks on this? Okay. This project, this project is located in the Herring River Marine Discharge Area, a nitrogen-sensitive watershed that is subject to total maximum daily load. You will need to file for a groundwater discharge permit with DEP and demonstrate that there will not be an increase of nitrogen loading into the Herring River as a result of the project. Obviously, we had those discussions. The direction of the groundwater flow on the property was not noted in any of the application documents as far as I could see. It's likely that groundwater flows south and southwest towards Sand Pond, and the Herring River. Direction of groundwater flow will need to be established with a hydrogeological study, which is required by the state for the wastewater treatment portion of the project. Comments?
Sure. So with that last sentence or paragraph, the reason I deleted it is simply because, as I noted earlier, it's really a placeholder. It's not a draft condition. So we're not objecting to the spirit. In fact, my other comment is that as you just went through the October 15th document, the proposed condition that we agreed to that covers the Herring River is included in one of those draft conditions. So that's why I struck that there. Really likewise as to the discussion at, I think, part roll 6 or 5, when it says it's located within the Herring River Marine Discharge Area, talks about the TMDL. Again, as you may recall from a few minutes ago, we covered that with our proposed condition. So conceptually, we agree. It's really just the language of what the condition would be. And again, the language that I asserted, which is relevant to two parts of this, is simply, again, as we already went through, that the applicant must apply for and receive a groundwater discharge permit from Mass DEP prior to issuance of a building permit. And again, when you talk about hydrological studies, that's something that's required by DEP in order to get that permit.
So, in summary, we're in agreement with the spirit of what the conservation is looking for, and it's up to the language that gets worked out.
Correct.
To decision. Design the stormwater system for at least a 50-year stormwater event, which we've already covered, applicant has agreed to that. Item 9, there shall be no discharge of stormwater directly into wetlands. It shall be infiltrated using catch basins, leach, recharge pits, vegetated swales, rain gardens, etc. first. Recommend construction, stormwater, BMPs, like the sediment traps and diversion swales, but that further information should be provided with the SWPPP, that's the Stormwater Plan Prevention. The SWPPP be submitted prior to construction for review by the Conservation Commission, and then she's also suggested alternative language. It should be noted that the intent is to capture and infiltrate discharge of stormwater from all impervious areas. 99% of the projects will have at least some landscape grass areas that flow overland to wetlands without being captured and infiltrated. Comment, please. Yeah.
Sure. On the substance of that last, I'll turn it over to Joe or Rich. Again, the idea here with my suggestions are that it's all subject to the approval of the Conservation Commission. When I struck a little bit of language, it was related to, for example, the et cetera, because that's too vague in an actual condition. I think those types of, which we talk about at the end of that page 2, it shall be infiltrated using catch basins, leach, recharge pits, vegetated swales, rain gardens. Instead of et cetera, I just suggested or other methods approved by the Conservation Commission. And then at the top of the next page, it's just really a repeat of what I said earlier as to the timing of the SWIP and submitting it. And just FYI, I'm told by Rich and Joe that the Conservation Commission may well require that the SWIP be submitted to them as part of the order of conditions, which if they do, that's part of their opportunity to do that under the State Wetlands Protection Act. So that's the whole spirit of what I just edited here.
All right, thank you. Just questions, anybody? Or comments? All right, one question I have is that I know for the comprehensive permit application, the 40B does not require you, the applicant, to in advance of these meetings to have met with the Conservation Commission. But I'm assuming if the decision is reached favorably on this application, and that's set in stone, to accomplish all this, I'm assuming will require hearings with the Conservation Commission.
Correct.
So before we're going forward, the Conservation Commission is going to be requested to hold hearings with you to review all these factors regarding wetlands and conservation issues.
Correct. In fact, it occurs to me that I don't think your draft nor mine included a condition, which we certainly will agree with, that indeed we have to obtain our order of conditions for the jurisdictional areas under the state WPA from the Conservation Commission before obtaining a building permit. So that really covers what you're talking about.
It's good to know. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to, it's actually, if you're reading along, I'm at line 81, item, I think 11.
Oh, actually, first on item 10, and I think you covered this. To protect the wetlands, wildlife habitat, and the Herring River, we recommend that only native plants be used in landscaping, and that drought-tolerant native grass seed be used in any lawn areas on the property. We also recommend that no fertilizers, even organic, be used on the property. And I think we've already agreed to all that. Is that correct?
Yes, we did state last night in the waivers that sometimes they do some initial fertilizer when they plant, particularly around the perimeters of the buildings for the shrubs.
Right.
But no turf. We talked about that last night.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All right, now on line 81. We recommend that the use of rodenticides and pesticides not be permitted on the property. These chemicals not only kill the species that they target, but also harm species higher up in the food chain that eat those other species. Applicant has agreed to these conditions. And the question here is any additional language that may be needed in the decision to cover this.
Which is what you just discussed.
Right. Excellent. Okay. That concludes all the recommendations or conditions by the conservation agent. And what I read so far, I don't believe that the applicant has agreed to go along these conditions and to meet with the Conservation Commission for any approvals going forward with the project regarding disturbance of land, habitat, 100-foot buffer, etc. Correct?
That's correct.
Any questions, comments from the board? Police recommendations. Submit a phasing plan and install optimum traffic signal timing prior to the certificate of occupancy for phase 1. So that's discussion earlier that there are differences of opinion in the town. So we need to get that reviewed. Okay, and they have an agreement. The applicant should provide pole-mounted speed monitoring signs at access points from Queen Anne Road and Main Street to the project. I believe the applicant has already agreed to do that, up to a certain expense. Okay. I gathered, obviously, that there'll be discussion with the police department as to the location of the signs should go. Public Works. Alternative road salts shall be applied to the subject property, which the applicant has agreed to. Just out of curiosity, what are those alternative road salts that would be used?
Well, there's a whole range of things, including byproducts from brewing, which melt snow. There's different, not sodium chloride, but different chlorides that are sort of less harmful for aquatic and terrestrial plants and wildlife. So it's, be something we would actually have to coordinate with DPW and see what do they like.
All right, so obviously
Yeah.
you'll meet with DPW
Yeah.
and get approval, review of what they're going to be using. Okay. So the town will have some control over that, or input.
Yep.
That was good.
It's as simple as you could just say, as approved by the DPW in a condition.
Next is information, suggestions from the Cape Cod Commission. Before we go forward, no board questions, comments? All set?
How about the housing advocate, Judy Burke?
Oh, wait a minute, it was all blue, I wasn't even paying attention. Thank you. All right, I should have gotten a clean copy with all, marked up the colors. Housing advocate, questions for, question for Judy, but question here is, can we condition rents not to exceed 30% of the income of each of the area median income? All right, so I do have a comment. This is a question on conditioning rents. So I have a comment from our consultant, and Amy, if you have any other thoughts. Per the HMT consultant, Judy Barrett, the board does not have the jurisdiction to set rents on how rents are calculated in relation to tenant incomes. The subsidizing agency controls that. That's under state control, which they need to get reviewed by the state on establishing rents. This board does not have the authority to impose conditions on the applicant, such as rents will not exceed 30% of the tenant's household income. So, obviously under the 40B, they have to have a certain percentage of units that are under 80% or under the household income. And for the schedule that's been posted, there are a substantial number of apartments that will be available, down to the 30% and 40% range. Correct? 30 and 50%. So, and that's for almost 3/4 of the development, approximately. But the state will be controlling those numbers. Okay, now the Cape Cod Commission. Thank you for pointing that out to me, Ken. Thank you. A project notification form should be filed with the Mass Historical Commission to determine any archaeological sensitive areas on the project site. If any archaeological sensitive areas are identified, the question would be what conditions would be included to protect those areas. So, a comment from the applicant.
There's actually a whole historical requirement in the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, SWIP, so we'll be doing that. That's at the federal level, but the state level you would do it as well, so no issues.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
My edits or clarification is simply that the project notification form for the Mass Historical Commission, and that is the correct legal term, that it be filed prior to receiving the building permit. And then I didn't strike anything other than, really your question. You asked a question there. The only reason I struck it is because I knew that was something that was, so you would know that you wanted to discuss it tonight. The way it works is under the regulations, typically it's the subsidizing agency that will do that as a matter of course, because they have to get that sign off from MHC prior to actually funding the project. But we're certainly fine with the condition as stated with my edit.
Just on a side note, regarding looking at any issues on historical issues or looking at the site, I don't know if it's going to be the same process, and told me this, but we recently, the town applied for a special permit in relationship to the construction of a substation on one of the streets. And because the sewer system is under state control, the land being used, the station was going to be built on, had to be reviewed for any historical issues. And there was a crew out there that was hired that was taking borings in several spots in the land to see if the borings found arrowheads or anything else of historical interest. And should one boring find an historical significant bore, then there'd be further bores done in the area to ensure the fact that the historical significance of the area was dealt with. Is that the same thing we're talking about, that someone at some point is going to be doing borings? Or how does it work on this project?
You typically don't do field testing unless you find through, or Mass Historical knows that this is a likely candidate site, possible site. So it's this combination of
I see.
prior research, prior knowledge, or, and then they do a review of this. So if you have a historic structure, then they'll document that.
Has there been any notification to you or your research that there's any such historical interest?
We haven't found anything from that perspective. You know, a lot of Native American are associated with water bodies. We don't have any active flowing streams on a lot of that. So a lot of that stuff, you know, sort of trails with some of that. But this is all part of the process. Actually, part of the Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act as well. So we have to go through a MEPA filing. And that'll be part of that, and then the Mass Historic will weigh in on that. So they may ask us to do some testing, and if they do, we'll do it.
Jay?
What about item 104 and 105?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to bring that to attention. Thank you.
Oh, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, we did not cover the condition should include local preference. We did not cover alcohol portable.
Well, why don't you read that section?
Again, this came from our housing advocate questions, but condition should include local preference. You'd like to address that one first?
Thank you, sure. We don't object in any way to a condition about a local preference in the lottery. It's subject to state approval and the fair housing laws of the state and federal laws. So my tweaks, and I've drafted in the past, I believe also with Amy, a more detailed condition that we would put in, that I would put in for the actual draft decision. So my changes are really, if you will, technical. There shall be a local preference lottery for the maximum number of units, up to 70% of the Chapter 40B units, which are the households earning up to 80% AMI, as allowed under applicable state and federal fair housing regulations, but only as may be approved. You said approved, I just said but only as may be approved by EOHLC for the initial, and you already have for the initial lottery. So it's really clarification and to be consistent with what state and federal law is. I don't think there's any substantive disagreement.
Very good. And the second issue was how can all affordability income restrictions be protected into perpetuity?
If you put a condition to that effect, the only question I would have is there a case law that says that you might not be allowed to do that. The expectation, I shouldn't say the expectation, the custom is, and I believe this was mentioned by your counsel at a previous hearing, that there is often a so-called springing or town regulatory agreement that comes into effect to maintain the affordability in perpetuity at such time as the state regulatory agreement is no longer in effect. And, you know, on that point, and this is advocacy, I believe that the project awarded to Penrose, the town project, they only have 50-year affordability restriction. So we would ask for that because that's what the town has agreed to with that other comparable rental project. But that's how it would be done. If you do that condition, it would be through a regulatory agreement for whatever period beyond the term of the state regulatory agreement.
Amy, do you have any comments on that?
So, Mr. Chairman, I plan on giving you a draft decision.
Mike?
I plan on providing the board with a draft decision, as I always do, which has all of my conditions. And I don't necessarily agree with the lottery condition because we usually do a more general condition that says that there can be local preference. However, it has to be, EOHLC has changed their guidelines with regard to local preference. So we want to make sure that whatever's put in there can be changed if EOHLC changes their guidelines. So I have some more general language than what Peter's put in. And then I have a whole bunch of conditions on springing and portability.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
I would like to explain the clause for the initial lottery only. But then what after?
Yeah,
What happens
well,
after
there's
that?
several explanations, including the state policy and what the agencies require, but it's also just impractical because you can't run a lottery and the required advertisements and notices and things like that randomly one at a time when, in 15 months somebody moves out and you need to find another affordable. So it's not done by a lottery at that point, it's done by a waiting list. And folks who are in the initial lottery, if they don't get it, which a lot of them won't because we know there's a huge backlog and applicants far exceed the number of units available, but they would like to be on a waiting list and would be contacted when there's a vacancy in an affordable unit.
I understand that you won't have a continual lottery, but what I'm wondering is, yes, how does this work for local preference or income level after the lottery?
Well, the income level is maintained, but that's a constant. The local preference, it's in violation of the fair housing law because in effect you would be saying if you have 2 or 3 applicants and you only take the local residents or folks who comply with the local preference, such as working in the town or kids in the town, in the school rather, that violates the state fair housing laws. You can't give a preference on that, random one at a time basis. That's why there's the policy now that says up to 70%. So that's why it's at the initial lottery only. And it's controlled by the state, which, as Judy Barrett advised, is something that is the state's prerogative, not any local zoning boards.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think like it went along. It's, we're going to be able to complete tonight in plenty of time. It's 8:15. I'm just going to take a 5-minute break, or maybe 7 minutes. I do want to allow time this evening for public comment. So we'll take a short break, and then we'll get on and complete the rest of the review of the conditions. On Cape Cod Commission, line item 107. Oh, no, actually I did that. All right, we're on line 113. Recommend granting the road width of 20 feet and 8-foot wide parking space. We've done. Operation and maintenance plans for stormwater management shall be submitted by the annual reports. Biannual reports shall be submitted to the town of Harwich. I forget how it's handled, I think we've got it covered. After each phase of development, we recommend an independent evaluation of stormwater management by the third party of the town's close choosing. I think we also covered that as well. Excuse me?
Mr. Chairman, the Conservation Commission will review the whole project, even though our notice of intent will be just for the activities that are within their jurisdiction. Typically, you wouldn't do it quite as many times, like 5 phases, you'd go in and review all 5 of these. We ultimately needed to prepare a certificate of compliance for the order of conditions through conservation. So you have to do an as-built, so it documents that the things have all been built, and you have to submit that to conservation. You typically do that at the end of the project. I think the applicant would be willing to have more than one time. Maybe 5 times is too many.
I understand. The decision will look and see what might be appropriate, but I can understand, obviously, at least 2 others, particularly after, phase 2. As noted in the Cape Cod Commission's review, the project is in the Heritage watershed, the River Marine Water
recharge area is an impaired water body, and the town is responsible for reducing overall nitrogen. I think we went through part of this in the fact that we're going to be nitrogen neutral. They want to expect the applicant to demonstrate how the overall project will mitigate additional nitrogen, which we've done. The applicant must coordinate with the town to ensure the project's long-term water management aligns with the planned actions of the Harwich River watershed described in the CWMP. More information about the expected timing for the different construction phases of the project, including DEP's permitting process, will enable the coordination and may clarify the waiver requests related to the project's watershed management. I think we've covered all that before. Any further comments? Okay. We recommend that some form of nitrogen credit be required as an offset should there be an additional nitrogen to the Harwich River watershed or some financial mitigation to the town. We'll discuss that. Project is an opportunity goes further that the town and the applicant work together to improve existing public safety and traffic issues along Queen Anne Road, as well as the surrounding intersections, which has been covered. The next paragraph from them is basically reviewing the fact that, given the size and scope of the project, they suggest the town, the select board, the planning board, as well as the finance committee, review the North Harwich traffic study, as well as the physical status of Queen Anne Road, maintenance history, and seeking an engineering assessment of the modifications to maintain and costs associated with the improvements of Queen Anne Road, which I think, as far as maybe required, requirement of traffic improvements, infrastructure improvements. And we've discussed that, and I discussed it particularly earlier. It also recommended that the police chief, Cape Cod Commission, and planning department that multi-modal transportation connections, such as sidewalks on Queen Anne Road, the connection to Cape Cod Rail Trail for bicycles and pedestrians be considered, especially for public safety. Again, BAP's North Harwich study. Existing problems already with Queen Anne Road, and the town, in Cape Cod Commission, is suggesting the town start to take action and plan. The applicant shall with the town and the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority to coordinate public bus service to the site. And you've indicated, I don't believe we're in a situation of conditioning that, or what is your recommendations on Amy regarding transportation to the site, public transportation? Is that a conditioned situation, or how do you go around that?
We usually require that they have.
Use your microphone. Can't be pulled down.
We usually require that they have a I think it's called a transportation the program where you hand out is it TMI?
I'm blanking on it also, but it's related to advising
so
people
it's,
to
you
use
advise the residents on transportation, what's available, and things like that. So, yes.
I guess a key question.
The whole program.
Yeah, I've asked before, as far as you're coordinating things with the Cape Cod Transit Authority, and to develop, because your tenants, your clients are going to need it, your services, coordinate, appropriate bus service, etc. And where may be needed.
Understood two things. It will be covered by the typical condition that Amy drafts and that I've seen many times. If I need to suggest tweaks, of course I will, but I think that'll be fine. But also, just so you know, we've already, after last night's hearing, contacted the Regional Transit Authority to start a dialogue and see how they respond, which I think will be positive in terms of their willingness to expand either their rideshare program or the on-call, even if they don't establish a regular stop. So by the next hearing, hopefully we'll have more feedback from them to report to you.
Thank you. The next item is a recommendation of speed monitoring signs, which we've covered. Recommend that Phase 2, the applicant consider improving the emergency access road, Manassas Road, towards Main Street to be used as a second collector road access for the project development. VHB noted that if a road were utilized as a second collector road, could help reduce the project's traffic impact along Queen Anne Road by 10%. And I think they actually indicated 10 to 15%. That's a condition which I think needs further discussion. And I don't know as far as Annacis Road, which is already deemed to be an actual road, though at this point we need to be able to cut through the woods to find it, but it is an actual road on paper. They're heading towards Main Street. The emergency access road will be built on this, and would probably, like myself personally, like to see recommended on the condition that a second road be installed for a collector at some point in the process, particularly after Phase 5, when the project is, the development is complete, to have a second access road. That's my personal feeling. And how do you feel, why not a second access road? What's the key thing why it has been considered? Given the fact that it does reduce traffic and give better direct access to get closer to town, as well as for safety regarding people who may have bicycles, etc.
Sure, the key reason has been stated in the commentary from our traffic consultant and the peer review back and forth is simply the sight lines. If there's a way to do it that complies with what the recommended sight distances, I should say, at that intersection with Main Street, then it would be, something that we'd agree to. And again, it's not completely within our control at all to be able to change it, because although we own land for most of the way up, it's not part of the project, but as I've said at the previous hearings, we do own land all the way up. But the problem for the sight lines and sight distances is it's at the intersection of Main Street, and that is, our access is provided very clearly and legally by a right-of-way, an actual instrument that's recorded. But the radii of the intersection and the width of that part of the access way, as we call it, we can't expand that. It's an existing deeded document with limits as to where it is, and we don't control the land on either side of it. So, that's why we can't just say, okay, we'll widen it, or move it and try to, make the site distances in compliance with the recommended distances and all of that from AASHTO and State Department of Transportation. So we're limited. We don't want to just agree to something that could be deemed unsafe. I mean, we're happy to review it, and if somebody, including our consultant, can come up with some clever way to do it so that it satisfies your concern, but that we're not constructing something that's deemed to be unsafe, we're certainly open to that. But right now, I don't know how we do that.
Good.
I just have one question. Looking at a satellite view, Annacis Pines LLC, is that property that's owned somehow in conjunction with you folks? ANNASIS?
No, not ours.
Who owns that parcel?
I don't know which side of the intersection it shows. I don't know if you can tell from the satellite map you're looking at.
It is where Anderson Road comes to Main Street.
Right, but if you're looking, excuse me, if you're standing on Main Street looking at Annacis, is it to the right or the left? The Annacis Pines property.
It is where Annacis Road comes down, and it's actually possibly 60 feet wide.
Ken, you want to show them the map?
That's not it. That's not right. The surveyor there's a 20-foot.
Who owns this property?
We do.
That's ours.
No, you own
Yeah, that's ours.
the whole thing.
That's the ownership. It's not ours. We
no longer in Essex Pines.
This is Main Street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, you as in the development home there?
Yeah.
But it's only 20 feet wide, it's not,
20 feet wide here, it expands.
oh yeah, no, it has
Main
a,
Street.
yeah, it widens out, but it's 20 feet, it's a 20 foot.
It's not 12.7 yards?
No, that's,
Really?
that's not, that's the assessor's map, doesn't necessarily match the deeds.
Yeah, there's an existing entrance there, which is
Wider.
That's wide.
Yeah, what's shown on the ground is wider, where the paving is wider than the actual 20-foot deeded right-of-way. Per the survey, in the survey work has been done.
But the 20 feet is Annis Road
Yes.
versus your right?
No, they own
This
it.
is land that, yeah. Now, some of this, and Essex Road is,
An ancient way doesn't have a right-of-way
it's not
for all of it, but here there's a 20-foot right-of-way that is owned by
yeah, it's a
Heinrich
place
Road.
That's the deeded right-of-way.
Yeah,
This is deeded property. This is
it's
not
deeded
right-
property, that's correct. It's deeded property.
Yeah, it's just
You're telling
property,
me
you're
your
right.
property is only 20 feet
Yes.
wide?
Right
Yes.
here, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay, that's what it is.
Here's my suggestion. First of all, I think, in spite of what perhaps our consultant might have said regarding sightlines, I believe the key authority here would be the Harwich Police Department in their review of what safety is regarding the roads. My recommendation is between, now and our next hearing date, which is November 17th, we get this further evaluated, because when we do a decision, we can't write a decision that says, well, in the future, if this becomes safe, then you're required to do it. It's either we write the decision with it in it, or we don't. Okay? So, between now and the 17th, I'm going to pursue this, and let's try to get a determination as to the town's opinion. Even on the sight lines, are those sight lines being interrupted by people putting trees or fences on town land?
We concur, and if I hadn't mentioned it in the past, but we were going to ask you that, so thank you. Yes, you should please inquire of the DPW. They should be able to determine if there are, fences, structures, vegetation that are within the town right of way. Because if that's the case, then the town has the right to have those cleared, and hopefully that would improve the sight distance.
But also, I think, and legally, we talk about this, but who determines, our safety of any intersection? And myself standing at that road, and I realize it's an impact on Main Street, and people on Main Street, and I understand concerns. But when I look down that sight line, it's far better than on a lot of roads in town. And that's my own personal feeling. But regardless, I think the final authority would be the town's safety departments, and let them, weigh in on determination on that. Perhaps in talking to town administrator to find out if the town's Traffic and Safety Committee wants to weigh in on their opinion as well, but I think it comes down to, my discussions with the Highway Department, they bow to what the Police Department says regarding road safety. And they felt it was their last call as to whether or not that could be an intersection done. As well as, from an initial conversation, there are other avenues besides using stop signs that can be done to make sure that safety is improved. Again, that's not saying that's the answer, but there are alternatives besides just people, pray and go. Stop signs can be helpful to improve safety.
We're certainly in agreement, and you're looking into that. That's fine.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to make sure I can confirm confirm your position. We've heard a lot of public opposition to making that a thoroughway, a crossway street. There are issues of sightlines potentially. Is your position that if the sightlines are acceptable, you're willing to make that a road?
Yes.
No more questions?
Just when you say road, I mean something the same widths and will be.
Correct.
Project, yes.
Driveway road, yeah.
It'd be a private road, but one of the requirements of, there's over 200, if not 300 private roads in town.
Right.
This would be just one more.
Yes, again, subject to the plans that we have that show the width and how the road would be constructed. The same thing would be what we would do if it's deemed acceptable.
Okay, thank you very much. On line 181 of the original document, require that any soils or fill materials brought to the site tested to ensure quality. I think we discussed the fact that you would look into having the soils tested at the site that it's being taken from to make sure they're fine. Okay. Do you agree?
Yes.
All right. One item that came up a couple meetings ago requires secondary containment for carbon-based fuel storage. Would we address that one? Okay, we're good with that one. Okay, thank you. Require re-infiltration on the property for groundwater pump during the construction. We took care of that. That's agreed to. And I hold in my hand the final page. Really decent one, Attorney Castle. May need slope stability document, slope not to exceed 3 to 1, which I don't understand. I understand what a 3 to 1 slope is, but what is being suggested here by TRC and what is your opinion of it?
On rare occasions, you go steeper than 3 to 1 on like an unmaintained, where you don't have to mow it. Typically, we have no slopes currently on the plan greater than 3 to 1. But if you did go, you would do a slope stability analysis. That's in the geotechnical report. You could put that in as a condition. We'd be fine with it. Or you could ignore it too, because the whole plan is designed at 3 to 1.
It is.
Or flatter.
Sure.
Yep.
I think, I don't know, whether we want to condition 3 to 1 or just put in the fact that a slope analysis is done. Any opinions on that, gentlemen, ladies? I recommend reflagging wetland for the Conservation Commission. I don't know at this stage, that's recommended, if that's needed, but please go ahead.
So if we apply for an ANRAD, and a third-party consultant is asked by CONCOM to ANRAD, abbreviated Notice of Resource Area Determination, that's to confirm flags and wetland locations. If you apply for that, they would have a third-party consultant come out and look at your flags. And so if the flags aren't there, we'll have to put them there. So that's covered in your condition to file an ANRAD.
They requested TRC remove 100-foot buffer lines for wetlands ACD. I don't believe the conservation has an issue with how we're handling the buffer lines. I don't know the purpose of it. Those are some of the drawings. Okay.
Yes, just a removal from the drawings,
Okay.
the lines on the drawings.
Thank you very much. Okay, last few items here by VHB. Item 1, we've already agreed to a 50-year stormwater plan, and we agreed to acquire operation and maintenance plan, agreed to comply with all state and federal stormwater planning permits. We all agreed here, agreed to the master DEP groundwater discharge permit. These are all conditions that are agreed to. Phases 2 to 5 on wood phasing plans for each stage of construction. They've agreed to the final design of the sidewalk connections to be coordinated with any future improvements and consistent with town standards. That's been agreed to. Again, it's all reasons. The applicant agreed for removal and restoration of the construction, access road, etc. It's on page 24 of the plans. We have an agreement for final boardwalk design drawings to be submitted prior to construction. And there's an agreement for the applicant to implement and maintain delivery, motor vehicle appointment and management program. Of course, we've already discussed that. And an agreement for submission of management plans detailing specific maintenance responsibilities, enforcement provisions. Okay. Any questions from the board, comments? All right, that concludes the review of conditions.
Are there other ones that could be added?
Yes. Yeah, that's a review of the conditions we put forward. Thank you.
So about line 191, it says it should be added.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. 191. That was what 191 was presented tonight. Thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate it, but it was already discussed. So, between now and the time that we actually, the next meeting is on the 17th. 17th of November. At that point, there may be additional conditions that the board will discuss, but during the deliberation period, when the public hearings are concluded, then we go into the public hearings for our deliberations, which there is no input from the public nor the applicant. And during that period of time, the board will, and the consultants from Mass Housing and the Town Council with Amy will be reviewing other conditions that will be part of the document. Many of those are, I understand, basically boilerplate conditions that are normally in a lot of 40B conditions to make sure that when the project goes forward as the town desires. So that would be, not all of them are going to be discussed in the meeting. There will be conditions, typically legal conditions and wording that will be reviewed and recorded in the final decision. And there will be an open meeting, so you will be hearing it, but you will not have time to comment. Okay. So that concludes that part of the agenda. Next on board is public comment period. Or unless there's anything else you want to discuss prior to public comment? Applicant? Okay. It is now 8:46, and I think that we should have time. I can allow up to a half hour for public comment. Again, we're all pretty familiar with the requests. We have 3 minutes after the warning, and at 2.5 minutes, you have a half minute left. And if you're asked to sit down, the fact that your time is up, if there's more time at the end of the period, you'd be welcome to come back in and finish your opinion. So, again, as always, there's a sign-up sheet in the front. So basically, I welcome anyone who wants to come on down, identify yourselves, and look forward to your comments. Please, sir. And if there's another person who wants to speak afterwards, you might come down to the area and be ready. I appreciate it. Okay? Thank you. Judy can't hear me? At all? Okay. All right. Sorry, Judy.
Unless she's the caller. She's the caller. Okay, she's the caller.
Oh, unmute her anyways.
I did the unmute.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to have public comment.
Of course.
So my questions are sort of a follow-on to what we just talked about, what you just were describing here around the process between tonight and, the
Yes.
future meetings. And so the questions that I had were, is there going to be time for additional public comment beyond tonight?
On the 17th of November.
Okay, all right.
I expect so. I mean, again, I can't promise how much time, but certainly we try to do that in every meeting.
Yeah, I think that the basis of my question is, as many of us have made note tonight, it's very difficult to have public comment on something you haven't had a chance to review.
Absolutely.
And therefore, any time that you put together tonight would probably not be sufficient for folks to digest
I
the
agree.
materials. And I just wanted to make sure that there was more time in the future from that standpoint.
That'll be my goal.
Okay. Second question was regarding additional conditions. There was some mention that there may be more conditions.
There will be.
Some of it procedural and some of it sort of standard boilerplate. But last night, several conditions were put out by one of the other town organizations, or suggested conditions. And I wasn't sure when the timetable of that being considered would be taken.
Excellent question, and I actually thought we covered a lot of the things that I don't remember Joyce making specific conditions that she said should be considered a condition. She had reviewed as far as the plans, but I will request her to send me an email on the specific conditions that she wants, make sure we discuss that on the 17th. Regarding Brianna Powell, her conditions were reflected in tonight. She had them in here.
Yeah.
So the only thing missing might be exact conditions from Joyce McIntyre, from the chair of the Harwich planning, and I will ascertain those, make sure I'm clear, and we'll bring them up on the 17th.
And then, thank you for that. And then the last question, I believe, is there's a number of different documents that have these conditions that referenced tonight.
Yes.
Are those all in one particular place, or are some to be loaded and then we can find them all in the same place?
I'll ask the planning department, the building department secretary to put both the applicant's condition responses and our comments all in perhaps in one heading. So you don't have to hunt for it. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
All right, because I can appreciate that. So we'll get that, do my best to get that under one item in the website.
Thank you. And then we'll have time to sort of look at that before the 17th.
Your input's important.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I think that was it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might, just one comment. As to Dr. Joyce McIntyre, her discussion of conditions, I believe we've covered each and every one of them.
I believe so, but I want to make sure.
I actually didn't want to say anything, but given your stating that you would contact her, excuse me, I think it should be noted that she was speaking on behalf of the local comprehensive planning committee. I think it should be noted, to the best of our knowledge, that she is also a member of a Facebook page that is entitled No Pine Oaks Village 4. So she didn't disclose that. If I'm wrong and she's a member, then the comment is irrelevant. But I do think, especially if you're seeking specifically her input, that should be noted. Thank you.
Again, given her depth of knowledge of the town and the work that the committee did, we had a committee member here last night that also spoke in favor of the project. But if there are a specific condition which really has facts based upon zoning codes, regulations of the town, I want to make sure we haven't overlooked it. So I'll ask her.
She has to meet with the entire commission. She can't provide comments on her own.
Good point. Okay, thank you.
What did she say?
She said Dr. McIntyre can't provide comments on her own. She would have to meet with the entire commission.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay. Next up, please. Anyone wants to make a... Okay.
Yeah, good evening, thank you. I basically just have a question rather than a long monologue. And that is, we're talking about a nitrogen-sensitive area, and there's been a lot of talk about being nitrogen neutral. However, the first phase of this project is going to be a Title V, based on the fact that we're going to be using 100 gallons less than the 10,000 gallon limit. Just how is that going to be managed? Is there a shut-off valve at the main water supply to this project so that when it hits 9,999 gallons, you turn the water off to the place? Or does the water continue to flow so they can exceed as much water as they need, and nitrogen now is flowing throughout the area and no longer is it nitrogen neutral? Please help me understand. Why isn't the final proposed wastewater treatment plant the number one thing that is built first before anything else is even considered? That's my question. Thank you.
Any response from the applicant?
Happy to respond. I will turn it over to Rich or Joe in a second, but they fully answered that last night at the hearing.
I think the discussion last night, the review was that this, even on the first phase, on the Title V, this will be at or approaching nitrogen neutral. And I think that, we're satisfied, at least I'm personally satisfied, that it's taken care of the fact that the septic system will be designed for the number of residents in the area, and it has to be approved, by the Board of Health. So by Harwich Board of Health, and the conservation agents that go from them, it's going to be go for us.
And the system will be reviewed by the state because the whole property is greater than the set 10,000 gallons per day. So it'll all be under the state's jurisdiction also, even though it's less than 10,000 gallons per day. It'll be still the same treatment level, just a smaller version of it. So it'll be the system will be phased in, so you build a portion of it to meet that flow of 9,000 gallons per day, and then you would expand the system as needed to accommodate the additional flow as the project grows.
Thank you. Next resident, would like to speak?
I'm Paula Miles from North Harwich.
And Paula?
I want to repeat a question that I asked when I was here another night, and that is, what will prevent people from cutting from Queen Anne Road through this collection road out onto Main Street? I live next door to the church at the four-way stop, and they put barriers in the driveway there because people were using their lot as a way to cut through and avoid the lights. How much bigger access would be made by Annis's Road? Just a question. I think it would be a disaster.
Well, okay, is that you complete your question?
Mm-hmm.
All I can say the fact that we can never guess as far as how people will use roads, but even the fire department has indicated that they have no plans on using the road there from Main Street because they can get to Queen Anne Road, the main entrance to Queen Anne Road, quicker than using that emergency road going to the property. So if emergency vehicles don't feel that it's faster, I think the average person in the car isn't going to feel that it's faster either. That's just my take on it. Any comment from the applicant? And if you tell me your question.
Well, as an emergency access, it will be gated. If, in fact, we just determined that it could be a road, the site distances are worked out, we've designed it for very slow speeds, right? We've been talking about that all along. We'll have a 15-mile-an-hour posted speed. So it's not going to be an attractive shortcut.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
All right, that's one question. Yesterday, a consultant said that the wastewater plant would have a flow that was far enough away from the river that it would not jeopardize it with phosphorus. But when I look at the map, it seems to me that the wastewater plant is going to be flowing directly to Sand Pond. And I don't think that's a great alternative.
Any other questions, ma'am? I want to hear all your questions and have you...
Well, it's a question of does the wastewater plant have an effluent that would flow in the groundwater to the southeast?
That's fine. Is that your last question?
That was the next question, yes.
No, I want you all your questions and have you sit down.
Oh, all right. And, well, I guess the last one I'm not going to even go to because I just leave it at 2.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure a response is needed. Again, that was discussed explicitly last night. And again, a very important point, it's not meaning to be a broken record, but it's all subject to the issuance of the groundwater discharge permit. With hydrological studies and beyond the whole 9 yards, it's very intense. It's a very scrutinizing process with DEP, which Rich and Joe have elaborated on. So I certainly respect the concern that people have for these environmental things, but the state is really looking out for those things. And so, we have to comply, and it's an onerous process. Thanks.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Hi, Teresa Johnson, North Harwich. I just have a couple of little bullet points that I just wanted to bring up. There was no mention of irrigation systems in the conditions, and I just thought that that might be something very important because that's an extreme waste of water. And to please remember about the millions and millions of gallons of water that this proposed development would use and the strain on the Monomoy lens, which is our only source of our water aquifer. There was also mention of multiple $10,000 offered for different road and safety offerings. Is it all part of the same $10,000, or is each bullet that was mentioned $10,000? There are multiple $10,000. And I thought the peer reviewer deemed the Anasis Road not an acceptable road. I would agree with consulting with the police chief, which was mentioned back in the September meeting. I don't remember the exact date. But it was mentioned they were going to defer to the police chief and town department's opinion about Anasis Road. I've heard of it referred to as an emergency access. I've heard to it referred to that they're going to make it a road, they're going to widen it, they're going to leave it 12 feet. It's kind of all over the board. Who's going to make the final decision, and is it going to be set in stone what this road is going to be? And has there been any discussion on the overheight issue with these buildings and too many livable floors? Which would be an opportunity to make this project smaller if it fell within the town's guidelines of height and livable floors. Thank you.
Okay. Well, first of all, the fire department has indicated that they're satisfied. They have no concerns on safety regarding the height of the project. Obviously, there will be further discussion here on board, but it appears to be within particularly commercial guidelines within, reasonable height, meeting reasonable height requirements. Regarding Nassas Road, it has been identified as an ancient way, and it actually is considered an existing road that has already been designated. It is a road. It may not look like one, but it is a road which they can now, this has been approved, they can now improve for the emergency access. The question we brought up to you tonight that I did was that are we making this a connected road at an appropriate time? At least in my opinion, by the end of the phase 5 of the development. Regarding that road, it will come down to, as I said, indications of can the road be made of sufficient size to warrant being a connected road, and regarding the police department, whether or not, as far as the town safety, I believe they're in charge of that, whether or not that intersection of Manassas Road and Main Street is appropriate without doing any type of mitigation efforts. If a mitigation effort is required by the police department in order to make it safe for egress, let them deem what they feel is necessary, as well as requests for the town to determine whether or not any sight lines that people have, and consultants have felt issues that impair the sight lines, to have them determine whether or not those sight lines can be improved if the sight lines be impaired, by items on public property. Regarding the $10,000, I believe, applicant, if you could comment on the $10,000 I was just going to refer to, just to remind people of your commitment on that.
Thanks to my colleagues for adding it up, because I'm not good at that. It is cumulative, so I think the totals that we drafted and you just reviewed earlier is $40,000.
What's the ordinance number 18?
Those are things that we identified, but as you know, or perhaps noted when we went through them, some of the things are already underway, like the RSA, the road safety study that we're paying for. We didn't put a limit on that. I think it's costing us $18,000. So there's actually more funds than what are specifically outlined there.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one other question? So with the overheight, there was a table last night, and it was like 5 feet, I don't know if I have it with me, but it was like 5 feet over the height limit. And it was
Could you please come to the speaker? I unfortunately
First of
cannot.
all, before you come to the stage, I need to ask somebody else if they're ready to speak. So we will deal with your question at this time. I'm not trying to be, so.
Mr. Chairman, we also have one question that you did have, is about the question of irrigation.
Thank you.
On the site.
We're not proposing irrigation.
So there'll be no irrigation system using water on the site. Is there?
Yeah, it's not an irrigation system, I think.
I'm sorry.
I think Richard, Joe pointed out that when the initial shrubbery and plantings are planted, there's probably some, more frequent watering,
Right.
But it's not going to be any irrigation system per se.
Is there someone else that would like to speak this time?
Tom Birch, resident of Harwich and owner of 2 properties on Queen Anne Road. A few questions here. I think it's line 48. Will demonstrate there will be no increase in nitrogen loading into the Harwich River as a result of this project. I took their calculations of the daily water use, multiplied it by 365, and it comes up to about 17 million gallons of water, that not one drop would be on this property without this project. I find it really hard to believe that it's going to be treated and not add any nitrogen to this watershed. I find it's maybe prove me wrong. They questioned the water flow. One of the very first meetings I came, one of their representatives, the question was asked, where does the water flow? Right from the center of the project, right to Herring River, with this little pointer. So they documented it that day. A little bit of my knowledge on phosphorus. Phosphorus has been banned in the industry of landscaping for over 12 years. However, all our soils on Cape Cod are maxed out on phosphorus. My question with the disruption of this woods over a 10-year period, will that process break up the bonding of that phosphorus to the soil? It's out there. Will that constant development of 10 years of digging and moving and stuff, I don't know who can answer that question, but it's a question I'd like answered sometime. And I'm going to talk about the sidewalks. I've heard it mentioned a number of times. Where are these sidewalks going to go? There's nowhere to go. Go to the dump? Go to my shop? It makes no sense. Then I look even further. Where are you going to get the land for the sidewalks? And if you're going to have sidewalks and bike paths, it's going to add 5 to 7 feet on either side of the road. You're not getting it from me. And I just don't, it just, making sidewalks to go nowhere just because you want to make sidewalks makes no sense to me. So. And who's going to pay for it? Has anybody gone down there and seen how many telephone poles are between 124 and Main Street? 100. You're going to move 100 telephone poles, and they're going to rewire everyone's shop and business and residence on the whole road, because you take that pole and move it, now you got to change the lines and the underground lines. And then everyone, say you take it by eminent domain or whatever, now every single property that's abided by zoning, my shop included, it's set back that much. Now you're going to take 6 feet of my property, now you're going to have to give me a variance. You have to redo the whole road, and it just makes no sense to me. That's all. Thank you very much again for listening to us.
Please understand that this committee is not going to be conditioning the Queen Road and have sidewalks, etc. The recommendation was that from the Cape Cod Commission that the town begin to look at, what changes to be made to infrastructure, and that was by their comments. Anyone else who's the next person to speak to?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Can we get the applicant to address the question of phosphorus?
I did cover it last night, go ahead. Thank you.
No.
So last time we answered the question that the wastewater treatment plant where it's located is, and I don't have the exact number on the top of my head, but it's a few thousand feet at least. So let's say, closer to a quarter mile or more.
He asked about the trees and stuff. I remember the other discount.
Okay.
He had a very specific question I'd like to be addressed.
Okay, so downgrading from the wastewater treatment plant, all the woods are staying. There's no tree removal that's going to remove the phosphorus that's in the soil from the loading. Trees that are coming out will be, disposed of and then re-landscaped. I'm not sure what the question is. Yeah.
I can address the flow. The wastewater flow is estimated at about 45,000 gallons per day. And that's typically, usually the actual flow is like half of that, typically.
Do we have someone else who'd like to speak and address the board? Oh, thank you.
Sue Shaw, 326 Main Street, North Harwich. I actually own that paddock fence.
Okay.
And I did want to let you know that there was a tree that was, when I moved in, that was right up against the paddock fence, and it was a huge pine. It was dangerous to have my horses there with the pine, so I contacted Highway, and they came out, the DPW, and they came out and they measured for me. And I wanted to know whose tree that was, because it was actually growing into the to the fence that was out there. And he measured, he said, that's yours. So I do own that fence. It is on my private property. Just wanted you guys to know that. And I also had questions, as Tom did, about that, about the sidewalks. And Millstone Road, as a lot of you guys know, has been just recently sidewalked and had to be repaved, which I assume that Queen Anne would be too. That was $10.3 million to do that project. And that's 2.5 miles long. Queen Anne between Pleasant Lake Avenue, or whatever road, whatever it is, and Main Street is 1.5 miles long. So it still would be a ton of money, and there was no talk about who would be paying for this. And I don't see that this should even need to be done if it weren't for Pine Oaks 4, the proposal for Pine Oaks 4, and if that came to fruition. And I still don't even know why we would need it. I don't know why we need to provide that for people who live there. We're not providing sidewalks for a lot of other people in town who might want them or think they need them. The other thing, and I think the most important thing that this question here of how can all affordability income restrictions be protected in perpetuity. I just think that if it's not, why are we contributing any money to a private developer who could go and have everything at market value later? I think we need to be sure, anybody needs to be sure, the town, the state need to be sure that this is going to always be affordable housing. Because if it's not, why would they need any help doing this? They would just be another business. They're not, and I think that's where their aiming is to, at one point, having it be all at market value. I'm just guessing that because nobody is nailing this down, and I think we need to. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have another speaker?
Brian Rainio, I live on 2 Norway. Couple of questions. Last month, you had mentioned that you're going to let us know the percentages. I was not here last night because I was at a wake. So you said percentages, so how many people would be turning around and coming in and being turned over? How long of a time frame it's going to be? Number 2.
I'm sorry, could you restate your first question? I didn't quite get it.
The turning over from Title 40B.
Yeah.
I hate talking in public.
Oh, that's fine. I just want to make sure I get your question correct.
Yeah, the Title B requirements, they said, well, it would be turned over at what point? They said, well, we'll get back to you next time. This is next time. I wasn't here yesterday. So I'd like to know what time that was.
Are you referring to the lottery?
The preference of when it was going to be turned over from the Title to 40B,
yep,
to being able to just be sold at market value.
Okay, so the discussion and actually the question from the last lady was basically making sure that the designated units, I believe it's like 192, probably 242, 192 is being designated for affordable housing. Right. The question is how long in perpetuity will that be maintained? Yeah. And our conditions will be that it be maintained as far as the law allows us, the state of Massachusetts allows us to do so. So right now, I believe the state may have a 40-year or 50-year requirement on that. I'm not exactly sure. But we'll be writing language, the fact that, we can go at least to that extent.
That's not the way it sounded last month, that's why.
No, I appreciate that. We're all learning as we go along, all right? But that's what's currently happening. I think the state initial requirement is 20 years, but we could condition to go further, and I believe we're conditioned as far as the state will allow us. Okay.
On section 1, where you're going to be putting in the Title V, and then converting it over later, at what point is that going to happen, and what are you going to do with all that Title V that's underneath all those buildings, or around those buildings? Are they going to be an empty pocket?
No, it's actually being added onto with the system. So it's actually going to be part of the initial, it's going to be part of the eventual system. They just keep making it bigger, as they accommodate each phase. So it doesn't go away. It just keeps getting bigger.
So Title V, you have a tank, and then you have a leaching field.
No.
Since when? That's what I had to put in my house.
I realize it's a little different.
Yeah, so this will be a wastewater plant, so it will have a tank, and then it'll have treatment components to go with that, and then it will have a leaching field also. So there'll be a component between the septic tank and the leaching field that is the treatment that gets the nitrogen reduction that we'll be required to get through the state.
Okay. You mentioned that the water runoff is going to be heading to Sand Pond?
I did not.
I heard Sand Pond you mentioned 4 or 5 times tonight.
Yeah, Sand Pond by groundwater does drain in that general direction to Sand Pond. Let me clarify the Title V question just so you get it. The difference between your house and this facility, this is not an individual septic system, Title V system serving the individual buildings. All the wastewater will be piped to the central location at phase 1, right at the beginning. It'll be designed for advanced nitrogen removal and other pollutant removal per the state requirements. And then, as the chair said, when phase 2, 3, et cetera go, it will be expanded to accommodate that additional flow.
Yeah, that's not the way I understood it when you were talking about
right.
that.
So that's why I'm letting you know. Sand Pond is down gradient from groundwater several thousand feet from where the wastewater plant is going to be located. And so the discharge from the plant will go into the ground and dry ground and then float down towards groundwater, and we will remove as much nitrogen as certainly possible, but the technology allows, and any that we can't remove because we can't have an increase in nitrogen loading, we will manage in other ways, either as an offset, some other way, or through a credit, and we talked about that earlier.
So I'm not going to go swimming in Sand Pond 5 years or 10 years from now. And it also does, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that water also does the... Can I finish? Thank you. That also goes into the Patrick Bogs, and that's 2,000 or 3,000 feet, you said? The river is only like 500 feet away.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? I can take one more speaker.
Somebody else wants to
Fine.
go?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you waiting till everyone else spoke.
I am on the packet, Teresa Johnson with Harwich. In the packet from last night, it says updated October 7th. So under item 325-20, it says waive to allow buildings for human use or occupancy greater than 2 stories as shown on the plans. So how many stories is it going to be? And then on 325-22 and 23, it says the applicant requests a waiver from the height requirements as shown below. So the height requirement for Harwich On the left side of the table, they all say 30 feet. So that's what we're allowed. On the right-hand side, it's all of their proposed buildings. 35 feet, 11 inches, 43 feet, 6 inches, 19 feet, 9 inches, 43 feet, 6 inches, 35 feet, 11, 43, 6, 20, 43, 6. So they exceed the height limit extensively compared to what the town bylaw is. The livable space, livable stories, and the height. This is our opportunity to make this project smaller, to conform to the community of North Harwich. It's way too big. It's right there in our bylaws. It's huge. It's massive. Please, please look at this chart and look at the livable stories and the height.
Thank you. Are you done?
Yeah.
No, thank you. I'll have John address this. Please note that as a 40B, this application needs to conform to state requirements, and the state allows the applicant not to conform to all zoning, to Howard zoning requirements. And so it's, our zoning requirements can be avoided in a lot of this application and refers back to state requirements for these types of facilities. So that's what's governed by here, not our local zoning laws. John?
Yeah, no, I think I echo your comments, Brian. This is something we deal with in our regular meetings, is building height in particular in a lot of the neighborhoods, typically 30 feet. Typically it's 30 feet from the average grade of the property, and obviously you've got an undulating grade here, which is why between the different buildings and the different locations within the site plan, some of the buildings certainly are going to exceed the current zoning requirements for buildings within Harwich. As Brian said, that is something that is often not allowed to be a condition underneath 40B. I believe, I'll speak to the applicants, I believe it is 3 stories in your large buildings. The current zoning would only allow 2 stories for human occupation in Harwich, but again, that's why there's a waiver requirement there.
Yes, that's right. The max is 3 stories, and if you look at the plans, at the elevations, they are designed to look really substantially like 2.5. So the plans speak for themselves. We think they're totally appropriate in character. But yes, there's no question we are asking, and we think merit, the waiver on the height. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate the public comment, and again, as one gentleman suggested, we'll have time at the November 17th meeting, which will still be held here, it's on a Monday, to address, your comments further, have the chance to spend more time looking at the documents online, okay? And, any further discussion by the board?
Brian?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we're looking for December dates. That's what we want to do offline.
Well, I'll just make a comment that folks, board members, I need to have you let me know what your schedules are for December, so we can start to arrange for a December meeting, which the plan is at this point, that would be for a meeting for deliberations amongst ourselves, but it will be a public meeting. So I think we're allowed to discuss dates offline. Any other? Okay, so that will be discussed offline if we're going to schedule something. And so, unless there's any other further business to be discussed, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and do our continuance. I'd like a motion to continue the hearing. I move to continue case number ZB 2025-21, Queen Anne Acres LLC and Mid-Cape Church Homes, Inc., to a scheduled public hearing on Monday, November 17th at 204 Cultural Arts Municipal Building,
auditorium, the same auditorium, Harwich, Mass, with a hearing starting no later than 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium. Thank you, folks. Appreciate your attendance. Oh, can I have a second on that? Second. Second by John. All those in favor? Aye. It's approved. Thank you.